Put down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
All right, we're back in the studio with Pat Pointon on private money. I know we're doing a lot about money, but you need money to make money, all right? And wherever you get the money, get it from anywhere. As we've been talking about the last couple episodes, we've been talking about private money with our master that has raised over $6 million in the last 10 years or so of private funds. He prefers private money over traditional bank funding. And I figured we'd do a quick little episode to get us juiced up for our class coming up on this Thursday. So let's get into it. All right, real quick Q&A. This is a question that, so I did my presentation from the last episode. I got my business cards. I'm serious. I got an aunt that wants to invest with me. She's seen that I have a few houses. She's ready to roll. And the question that she asks, this is what she says: am I going to get my money back?
Of course. This is a collateralized investment, as we talked before, which means you're always going to either get your money back in its entirety, or you're going to get the piece of real estate, which you can then rent or sell to recover your money.
Worst case scenario.
That's a worst case scenario.
So
you're always going to get your money back one way or the other.
So Grandma Sally, you will get your money back plus a profit. And if for some reason, if I die, kill, if I did something wrong, if I get arrested, whatever happens,
that property can be disposed of, and it's worth a good deal more than what you borrowed. And so you'll get your money back, plus you'll get to keep whatever's left.
So, for example, Grandma, that property is appraised for $100,000. I'm only asking for you to loan me $75,000. I bought the property for $60,000. I'm putting $15,000 in it.
Right.
That leaves $75,000 of actual capital in the property.
But $100,000 of value.
And $100,000 of value. I'm giving you 6% back every month on your loan
money
that you gave me.
Right.
And with a 5-year balloon.
Right. Correct.
And if something ever happened, you will get that house back. You could sell it after you pay realtors and all the other jazz. You could walk away with an extra $20,000 plus all the interest I made. But we don't want to go there. But that's a collateralized.
That's your worst case scenario.
Okay. So, and Grandma, if you don't understand what collateralization is, what is that, Pat?
It means that you have something other than my good word standing for the debt. Collateral could be art, it could be gold bullion, it could be rare coins, it could be real estate, it could be antique cars, it could be whatever has value. So if I default, that property becomes yours so that you can recover your debt.
And just typical investment, Grandma, that you have in the stock market right now is not collateralized.
Absolutely not.
So if
company
Enron
goes under,
has a sex scandal and it goes down and your stock that was $20 a share is now worth $2 a share.
I saw Enron stock selling for $68 a share. I also saw it selling for 60 cents a share.
I saw it for like 20 cents.
Well, I didn't follow it that closely, but my point is, if you'd have had $68 stock, you'd have been pretty unhappy.
Yeah,
you really would have. You'd have been wiped out.
Yeah, and
I told you in the last episode I was going to touch on bonds. There were some people that I know, and they made the national one of the national news shows. They had decided to retire. Both of them worked at GM for like 30 years. They bought GM preferred bonds that paid 6% tax-free. GM went through a reorganization, and their $600,000 worth of bonds were now valued by the judge for $6,000. Their retirement didn't even start to pay their grocery bill, much less their house mortgage, their car payments. All the things they thought were going to be covered under their $600,000 worth of bonds went up in one stroke of the pen signed by a bankruptcy judge.
All right.
Now, if that had been collateralized, they could have sold that product off. That'd been $600,000 worth of real estate. They could have sold one to this guy and one to that guy and one to somebody else, and eventually recovered most or all of their money.
Okay. Another question. Grandma says, what's in it for me?
Well, what's in it for you is the return on investment. I mean, obviously, you're getting whatever, let's say $6,000 or 6%, and you had $75,000, so you're getting what, $4,200 a year? That's what's in it for you.
Right.
And your money is going to sit there whether you put it to work or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't put it to work and earn $4,200, shame on you.
Should I, when I do my presentation, should I have a certain number, like 100,000, like examples of what the return would be?
Sure. I do it all the time. I do it on Blackboard. People like to see you work it out right before their eyes.
Okay.
So I take a chalkboard or whatever, and I say, oh, here's your $100,000.
And this is 6% return, monthly, quarterly, yearly.
However you want to pay it. I mean, that can be something you structure. Now, what I normally do is pay it monthly because I normally put it on rental property.
Right, and I agree.
So
they want
I'm
to see that
paying
check
them
every
as
day.
I'm getting paid. Now, on the other hand, on my subdivision property, I'm paying them their interest as we've agreed on at the sale of that individual lot. So they may have put up the money for 100 lots. Well, lot number 1 sells. They're going to get that percentage of their return right then.
Okay,
I'm not going to make monthly payments, but that's something you structure on a case.
That's what you said
basis.
earlier. Okay, so you're looking for $100,000 investment. You're selling 10 lots per se. What's the? Okay, I got you. All right, all right. Question number 3: what are my risks?
Well, I think your risks are pretty minimal. I think your greatest risk would be that you would invest your money with somebody.
No, we're talking to Grandma. Grandma says, "What's my risk?"
Okay,
Pat.
Okay, Grandma, your risk would be that I don't perform.
Okay, okay, good.
That's
I default,
going to be your risk.
Okay, and that's another word
and
would be
I'm
default.
mistaken about its value.
Okay.
Or I fail to perform.
Okay.
Now, what is your risk if you buy stock? Think about that. Do you know anything about the company? Can you read a prospectus and tell me anything about what's going on inside that company? If you can, step to the side here. You're the only person in Oklahoma City I know who can do it.
Sure. And who has the time?
What I'm saying is, the smartest accountants in the world and the best lawyers in the world wrote that prospectus, and they tell you something on page 1 and tell you something different on page 2. Now, if they go up or down, you got no guarantees. Here, you at least have the property standing for the debt if I fail. Now, maybe it isn't a perfect arrangement, but it's a far better arrangement than anything else that you're going to be allowed to invest in. Now, if you had $100 million, Grandma, and you could go to one of the 6 best property managers in the world, they all live in Vail, Colorado, they only take customers that have $100 million, then that stock market, bond market thing would be all right if you could get one of those guys. But if you got $50,000 or $100,000, you aren't going to get any investment advice that's any good in comparison to what the real money people get.
Sure. I understand.
They're getting out when you're getting in.
All right. Grandma says, how is my investment secured?
Well, it's secured by a first mortgage. Your bank has a mortgage on your house, Grandma, and you make a payment every month to your bank for your house.
Right.
You're being the bank, and I'm making a payment to you every month on the mortgage that is secured on this property, which is filed in the county courthouse by the title company. And it is a lien against this house that is in first position, which means it must be paid before anybody else gets anything.
Sure.
Whether I pay it or a new purchaser buys it or who does it, you're going to get paid because you're in first position.
Right. Worst case scenario, you get a house.
That's the worst case.
Okay, so do you have a plan, and is it realistic? So, Mr. Investor, this sounds good. I have $50,000. What's your plan, and is this really going to be realistic?
Well, that's something where you're going to have that credibility kit and show them how you're going to get from talking to completed project.
Okay.
Now, the way I did that, I put people in my car, and I said, I drove them out to a house and said, this is one that Joe Blow lives in that I did 2 years ago, and this is one that somebody bought from me 6 months ago, and here's the paperwork. You'll see it's title company paperwork on their letterhead showing how much it sold for, how much I netted, how much the investor got back. And it'll generally have the investor's name and equity trust or however the money was sent. There'll be a record of how that money was paid to the investor.
And then
did that right on the HUD-1 sheet.
And then you have a statement too.
And I have a statement showing what I made and what the investor made.
And what you're paying.
And normally I would get a letter of recommendation from that investor saying this deal worked perfect. It did this, it did that.
Call me.
And I have I have a lot of mine will now say, I've done 12 loans with him or 20 loans with him or whatever, and everyone's been wonderful. So I'm walking them through a real brick and mortar house. I'm showing them real documents, and I'm offering them a real opportunity. Okay. Now, if they don't believe I'm their guy, they don't make me the loan.
All right. So, little tip there, folks. You get a testimonial.
Absolutely.
So you got to get your deal done. You got to get your first private money done.
That's part of a credibility kit.
And you got a letter in there, and it says, call this guy that I have loaned money to and paid him back. All right, so that's our quick 10-minute show about private money. You don't want to miss out. June 25th. That's right. Go to okcclass.com or Class OKC or thesavvyradioshow.com and find more information. Man, you got to meet this celebrity. Pat Pointon, we appreciate your time, and we're going to cut another episode sometime soon, but don't go too far. Thanks for coming to the show.